Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kudash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, salutations, and blessings be unto the hopeful elect, pushing his truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the globe, in the sincere hopes of being delivered in these last days. This is the brother Yakanan from the GMS England branch. As you can see here, I have this interview from the Tucker Carlson show on YouTube. This is from February 9th, 2026. So it's some months back. And it's entitled Billionaire Investor Ray Dalio, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, warns of deadly economic crisis. Here's how to avoid it. Okay? And, there's a few statements that he made towards the end of this interview that I want to highlight, in this brief lesson. And it just goes to show, these, if you will, lesser luminaries, these billionaires and millionaires in this society, they understand what's about to manifest in these last days. They know that a cashless society is coming, all right? Which, everyone by now should know that a cashless society is about to be rolled out in every, nation upon the earth, okay? Mass majority of nations upon the earth. Why? Because there's various different pilots, test runs going on throughout the four corners of the globe. And there has been, for the last at least five years. Okay? There's websites that you can go on that will show you, a map of different nations that are taking part in different pilots, different test runs throughout the earth, testing out, digital currency, testing out, having banks without cash, on the premises. Okay? There's various different pilots that are taking place upon the earth, and there has been for the last 5 years, like I said. Okay? So these things have already been in motion. All right? Now you had Visa, you have Visa, you have MasterCard. Well, Visa, it was every year, I believe, they used to release a report. And the report was basically themed around how ready particular nations are, to transfer to a cashless society. And it would grade each nation, according to their readiness and according to, the level of technology they were utilizing, whether they were using checkbooks, whether they were, using cash points, or whether they were using their phones, Android and Apple Pay, so on and so forth. So all of these different things that you're just utilizing on a day-to-day basis, you don't understand that the elites, the wicked elites of Esau Edom, are quantifying everything. And they're taking that data and they're using that data to project for their plans of the future. Okay? And that's why the scriptures say, their mind is deep, in Psalms, the 64th chapter. Okay? Because while you have people just, struggling to survive and, they're occupied in their day-to-day struggles. And, well, the wicked elites of Esau Edom are planning how to put you into a digital prison. Okay? These elites are planning, on how to effectively put you into a digital prison, man. And that's what we've been warning you of through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Okay? We've been warning you that this time is coming. We've been warning you Israelites out there that there's about to be a major change upon the earth. There's going to be a major shift. And a lot of you are going to be caught out there unawares of what's actually transpiring. Okay? Because your head is too occupied in this world and trying to make it in this world and try to survive in this world, not knowing that this world is about to fade away, as the scriptures say. Okay? This kingdom is about to fizzle out in a major way, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Okay? Now let me just play a few excerpts from this video And then, Lord willing, we'll get into a few scriptures, man.
Right.
What happens if the government issues digital currency? Like, what does that mean?
Well, digital currency is, right, you're talking about central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
Okay, and that there's a great deal of appeal because of the fact that it's easy and so on. But it's and I think it'll be done. A lot happens.
Do you think it will be done?
Yeah. I think it's, but what happens in the digital currency, of course, it's easy to transact and so on, and it'll be like money market funds, I think.
And I just gotta say this, man. You got certain guys out there that want to call us, conspiracy theorists and nut jobs for going into this information. Well, look at the type of people that are going into this information and discussing this. Okay? This is on, pretty much all major media platforms. They're talking about CBDCs. They're talking about, a digital society. They're talking about brain chips. All right, this ain't information that should be foreign to anyone anymore. This is not something that should still be, scrutinized in any way, shape, or form. If your eyes are open, okay. If you can't see this and you don't want to talk about this, then the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai is not dealing with you. Okay? And the Lord hasn't illuminated you to the true path. All right? You're still shrouded in darkness. As it tells us in John chapter 3 and 19, they love darkness rather than light. Okay? You want to keep rolling around in the mud, rolling around in the filth, then you can stay there. All right, but we're here to edify, the hopeful elect of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, and we're here to preach the truth. We're here to let it be known that this place is about to go down, and there's going to be a digital society that's about to be manifested, and there's the Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai is making a dividing line where people are going to have to make a choice, and you're not preparing the flock to make that choice. All right, to make that decision. You're not arming them with the correct information for them to make that decision in regards to what they're going to do in these last days. All right, and that's going to backfire on you in a major way. Because when people find out that, the Great Millstone was always right and Great Millstone was always telling the truth, you're going to have to answer to your congregation as to why you didn't, inform them of these things. But the reason you didn't inform them is because that message wasn't given to you to broadcast, because you're not men of the Lord. You're not men of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, and you wasn't given the true and pure, testimony to preach, because you're not of the elect. And that's why the scriptures say, they were like dumb dogs that cannot bark. All right?
The question will be first, will they be able to offer interest? So there's a debate now as to whether they will be interest. If they're not able to offer interest, and there will be a debate, probably they won't be, but then they're not an effective vehicle to hold it in, because you'll have the depreciation.
Of course.
You'd rather hold it in a money market fund or a bond, but that's debate. There will be no privacy, and it's a very effective controlling mechanism by the government.
Right, so he said there will be no privacy, all right? And it's a very effective method, to basically control the people, all right? To summarize, what he was saying. You're not going to have privacy. There's not going to be no such thing as privacy or any such thing as you making a transaction, all right, between you and, whatever person you're buying or selling from or buying or selling to. That's going to be a thing of the past. Everything is going to be screened. Everything is going to be verified. Everything is going to be on the blockchain, all right, and verified, before you can, continue a transaction. It has to be approved by the powers that be. And that gives them great control, all right, because they can block a sale, okay, they can enable a sale, all right, they can turn you off, okay, if they don't like the way you're moving, if they don't like, the way that you're moving in society, or the way you're conducting business, okay? Or if you violate a particular law, they can turn you off. And so you won't be able to function in society. It gives them all the power in the world to do as they will. Okay, so why wouldn't you be warning the people of such, information, of such changes that are about to go down in society? And such a major thing like this, of course, it will be mentioned in the Holy Bible, which it is. Revelation 13 and 15 on down. This is the beast system that's being manifested in these last days. So, of course, we're going to speak about this. All right?
As all the transactions will be known. All transactions done with digital currencies will be privacy, and it's a very effective controlling mechanism by the government. What I mean is all the transactions will be known. All transactions done with digital currencies will be known, which is good for illegal activities, getting control of illegal activities.
Right, so that's going to be the end of, so-called cash in hand. Okay? That's going to be the end of anyone being able to work for a company without being officially and legitimately, documented as working for that company or working for that particular person. Okay, nothing could be done, without the knowing, of the powers that be. Everything is going to be quantified. There's not going to be nothing that you can do in society that involves a transaction without them knowing. Okay? That's complete control. That's complete slavery. So everything has to be verified for it to be possible on the grid.
It also means that the government has a great deal of control. For example, they can tax that way. They can take your money. They can establish foreign exchange controls and the like. And so that's something that will be an increasing issue, particularly for international holders of that currency, because
if you've been putting off investing, this is probably one of the easiest ways to start. Right now, XTB are giving away free stock to new users
of that currency, because they might feel, let's say, if you're a Frenchman and they wanted to have sanctions, they could take your money,
of course,
and so on. So there's the privacy issue of that. And
if you're politically disfavored, you could be shut off.
Politically disfavored, you could be shut off. Yes.
Right, and that's the point that I wanted to highlight. He said if you're politically disfavored, you can be shut off. Okay? So if the powers that be, they don't like you, they don't like what you represent, they don't like your mind state, they don't like your views on any given thing, you can simply be shut off. And that's already happened. All right? Now remember, at the height of this, Ukraine versus Russia war, you had people that were expressing their opinions in regards to that war, and it didn't align, with particular governments, and their bank accounts were shut down. All right, this was about a good 2-3 years ago. All right, this was reported in the news, and I believe at the time, I'd done a video on it, and I believe other, brothers and elders, apostles, so on and so forth, may have mentioned it and done videos in it as well. All right, so that actually happened. You actually had people that had their bank accounts shut down, based upon their opinions, based upon, them disagreeing or agreeing, with certain things that were transpiring upon the earth concerning that war. All right, so if they have the power to do that, they're looking to move forward with that. All right, they're looking to make that, on a global scale. All right, so if you don't fall in line with the powers, you can be shut off. And they already showed you examples of that, with Ye, all right, with Kanye West. There was a point where he had his bank account closed down when he was coming out with all the information, coming against the small hats and exposing their wicked deeds. What happened? They shut his bank account down. All right. He had so-called, he had like hundreds of millions of dollars in a particular account, and they just shut that account down. All right? Which, they're just using him as an example to show you what can happen to you. Most of these things are, psychological operations and, just ways of, pushing, their agenda out there, for the masses by using, these celebrities. All right. So that's where things are heading. All right. And that's a beautiful thing. Let me rewind that.
They could take your money,
of course.
And so on. So there's the privacy issue of that. And
if you're politically disfavored, you could be shut off.
Politically disfavored, you could be shut off. Yes. So those kinds of issues enter into it. For those reasons, I don't, and they're very tiny. I don't think that you're going to see the development of central bank digital currencies to be of a magnitude that it's going to be, that big of a deal. I think that doesn't mean it won't grow, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. So
my last question is, given your description of the United States as in stage 5 in a process that only
which doesn't mean it's inevitable.
Of course, but there are only 6 stages in the process you described. So it's toward the terminus.
It's the time that it's time to worry.
So you go to walk.
And it's inevitable, all right? And we know it's inevitable because, the scriptures say so, prophecy says so. All right, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth, and it shall not return unto me void. All right, this is biblical prophecy that we're talking about. All right, this is not something that might happen, maybe, or if we can do this, we could stop it from happening. No. All right, there ain't no stopping the manifestation of the MOTB, the Revelation 13 and 16. It's going to happen because it's biblical prophecy. All right. And that's where, that's where there's a cutoff point concerning, these people that have snippets of information and the prophets of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. We know what's going to happen. And when these things start to happen, Ezekiel 33 and 33, then shall they know that a prophet hath been among them. Okay? So things are about to get real draconian out here, upon the earth. Okay? Now I just want to get one scripture and we'll close out. Right. This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 11. And it reads, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Okay? So them 2 horns, they represent what? The 2, political parties. All right? You have the Democrats and you have the Republicans, and going back to the ancient Roman Empire, you had the plebeians and you had the patricians. Okay? So 2 horns like a lamb, but he spake as a dragon. Okay, going into their draconian law, them harsh laws, them harsh measures. Okay, and we're about to see that draconian law, them draconian ways, them harsh ways manifest in these last days. You're going to see how brutal things are going to get in society. Okay, because for them to, force a digital society and a chip, upon people in that fashion, it's going to take some real harsh dealings. Okay, it's going to be a real harsh time upon the earth, and we can't wait. We frankly can't wait for these things to transpire, because these things are necessary evils that must manifest so we can get out of this wicked kingdom, man. Okay? So, I'm going to cut it off there. Lord willing, this brief video has been edifying. And until next time, I'll say shalom.